Hi friends, I Srinath Pandav welcome you all to CSC Specialist. In the last video lecture, we have seen that basic terminologies in the polity. One is country, second nation, third is state. We have seen the classification of state. State includes territory, population, government, sovereignty. Then we have seen the government, equality and equity, right, democracy, constitution, and separation of power. In today's lecture, we will see about the historical background or historical underpinnings. After the Mughals, especially after the death of Aurangzeb, there was no such pan-India leader to rule the India. Hence, the foreigners took the advantage of ruling India. Here the timelines become very important. The timeline is first Portuguese, then come the Dutch, then British, Danes, and France. Portuguese ruled from 1498 to 1612. Dutch ruled from 1612 to 1687. British ruled from 1600 to 1857. Then Danes ruled from 1616 to 1845. And France ruled from 1664 to 1760. Portuguese were first to come and last to go. Here we say that 1498 is the Black Day because here the Vasco da Gama discovered the sea route to India, and from then onwards the foreigners started coming to India. This is a timeline. You have to know the chronology about this timeline. For example, Portuguese, after the Portuguese, Dutch came, British, Danes, and France. Even though there were various foreigners, only British have dominated the India. So let's see the reasons for British domination. Portuguese, they started implementing Christianity in India forcefully. Hence, it was not in interest of Indian citizens. Hence, they have not dominated the Indian for long period. And other reasons include British had the supra-naval force. Hence, they have easy access to the other lands and also through the sea. Then, Battle of Plassey and Battle of Buxar. This strengthened the British hegemony and provided the psychological dominance after Mughals. No pan-Indian empire after the Aurangzeb. And later Britishers bought the policies like doctrine of subsidiary alliance, doctrine of lapse, and also introduced various land revenue system like zamindari, which was famous in the northeastern part. Next, Rohitwari, dominated in South India, and Mahalwari in the Western India. And these are the reasons where British had its impact to rule over India. Then let's know the how British ruled India. When we see the British rule in India, there we can classify it into two. One is company rule and another one is crown rule. Company rule, we can say that 1773 to 1858, and crown rule is from 1858 to 1947. In company rule, we see three acts, especially Regulating Act 1773, Pitt's India Act 1784, and Charters Act. Here in Charters Acts, there are various Charters Acts like 1813, 1833, and so on. In Crown Rules, we see Government of India Act 1858, Indian Council Act. Here there are three acts: 1861, 1892, and 1909. And later we can see Government of India Act 1919, Government of India Act 1935, and Indian Independence Act 1947. This is what we see in detail in the next slides. First, we start with the company rule, especially the Regulating Act 1773. Then we proceed from the Pitt's India Act, Charters Act, Government of India Act, Indian Council Act, and Government of India Act 1919, 1935, and 1947, Indian Independence Act. Regulating Act 1773. What are the reasons to bring this act? The first and foremost reason is East India Company started its territorial expansion, and the corruption was happening among the servants of company. Hence, the Regulating Act was brought. Then what are the features? The features of Regulating Act includes it created the Governor General post, Governor General of Bengal. Hence, earlier it was Governor of Bengal, now it has transmitted to Governor General of Bengal. The first Governor General of Bengal was Robert Clive, and first Governor General of Bengal was Warren Hastings. And other features include it created the council, that is called Executive Council, with 4 members. They used to assist the Governor General of Bengal regarding the policy making and policy implementation. Here, Governor General of Bengal doesn't have veto power. What happens if he doesn't have veto power? Already there was an Executive Council with 4 members and Governor General of Bengal was 1. Hence totally 5 members. Any decision to take, the ratio would be 3:2. Hence, if Governor General of Bengal would have the veto power, if he is in the 2 ratio, he would have used it. But here, Executive Council has more role than the Governor General of Bengal. And other features of this act include, here Supreme Court of Calcutta was created. And in this Supreme Court, there was 1 Chief Justice and 3 judges. First CJ was Sir Elijah Mpe. Then other features include created Court of Directors. This Court of Directors' work was to inform Queen about the affairs in India. Court of Directors was appointed by Queen. The Supreme Court of Calcutta have both jurisdiction over civil and criminal cases over British residents and not Indian natives. And these are the features you have to know about the Regulating Act 1773. Next, coming to the Amendment Act 1781. This Amendment Act was brought amendment to the Regulating Act 1773. What are the reasons for bringing amendment? One is corruption was continued and no veto power to Governor General of Bengal. Hence, there exists conflict between the Governor General of Bengal and Executive Council. Hence, these are the two reasons where amendment required. And what are the features of this? This clearly demarcated relations between executive and judiciary. And Supreme Court jurisdiction of Bengal is to only look over the Bengal and not over the Madras and Bombay cases. Here, Supreme Court decision can be challenged before Governor General of Bengal, and Indian natives brought under Supreme Court, but Muslims and Hindus has to follow their own law. Then coming to the next act, that is Pitt's India Act 1784. Here, East India Company divided into commercial functions and political functions. The commercial functions are looked by Court of Directors and political functions are looked by Board of Control. Hence, we can say that Board of Control is created in the Pitt's India Act 1774. Court of Directors created in the Regulating Act 1773. Hence, this led to the dual government. And in this act, company territories were called as British possession. This implies crown or government sitting in Britain taking affairs of East India Company. Then coming to the Charter Act 1793. Here, charter is for 20 years. Features include the Governor General of Bengal can supersede Governor of Madras and Governor of Bombay. And in this, the veto power is given to the Governor General of Bengal. And other features here is company can give license to the individual trade, which is also known as privilege trade. These are the features of the 1793. Next, coming to the Charter Act 1813. Here the features include, here the charter is also for the 20 years. Here the features include monopoly of East India Company to trade with India ended. What is the meaning of this statement? Earlier, it was only the East India Company who used to trade with India, hence has the huge monopoly. But after ending the monopoly of East India Company to trade with India, it means other companies can also come and trade with India. And the second feature is, even though the East India Company trade with India was ended, the trade with tea and trade with China was under the control of East India Company. And in this, the main feature is British has to spend rupees 1 lakh on education annually. And this was the question in the year 2018 civil service examination. And this act also allowed the Christian missionaries. Then comes the Charter Act 1833. This act is also called as St. Helena's Act. Why it is called as St. Helena's Act? because this act took away the Saint Helena Island from East India Company. Saint Helena Island is located in the southwest Atlantic. The features of this act include Governor General of Bengal has been transformed to Governor General of India. The first Governor General of India was William Bentinck. Here, the East India Company monopoly was totally ended. That is, even the trade with tea and trade with China was ended. And in this act, the first law commission was appointed. And the first law commissioner was Lord Macaulay. Here, the first time Indians demanded the CSE, but the Court of Directors denied it. And before this act, the laws were called as regulations. And here onwards, the laws used to call it as acts. These are the features you have to remember from the 1833 Act. Next, coming to the Charter Act 1853. Here, no mention of 20 years charter. And the features include replaced executive council with legislative body and executive body. The civil service examination opened to Indians, but to write in England. And Satyendranath Tagore was the first to become Indian civil servant. During this time period, the Governor General of India was Dalhousie. Let's see what are the workings of the Dalhousie. He laid the first railway line from Bombay to Thane in 1853. He also introduced doctrine of lapse, introduced Telegraph Act, Widow Remarriage Act 1856, established Public Work Department. Hence, these are the workings of the Dalhousie. And in the last slide, we have seen here the Governor General was William Bentinck. He worked for sati abolition and also worked for female infanticide, abolished personalized courts and made central courts. And during this time period, that is after the Charter Act 1853, as there was no mention of charter of 20 years, here in 1857 the revolt happened, first war of Indian independence. And after this war, there exist lot of changes in the British rule, that is crown rule came to being. Hence, just have a look over the 1857 revolt. Now let's see what is the difference between the revolt and revolution. Revolution is a comprehensive, that is taking all the aspects and participation by all the stakeholders. For example, India's independence. Revolt is where some part and some section fighting for their right or privilege. Now you got the difference between the revolt and revolution, and it is a 1857 revolt. To bring the revolution, it creates the new society and new ideology. These are the difference between the revolt and revolution. But V.D. Savarkar says it is the first war of Indian independence. But many questions how it is the first war on the basis that there was a lack in the national sentiment, absence of South Indians, and not all the sections were involved. Now let's see what caused the 1857 revolt. First, social and religious causes. British government abolished sati, which was against the Indian citizens will, Widow Remarriage Act, and these are opposed by the conservatives. And racial discrimination, for example, in the military, there exists huge racial discrimination. Then the Western education by British, which is opposed by the Muslims, Hindus, and various sections of the society. And the immediate cause was the cartridges of pigs and cows, which hurted the Hindu and Muslim sentiments. Harassments of agriculturists, for example, forcefully indigo cultivation. Then administrative causes. Here zamindars have the sunset clause, and other administrative cause was the higher post and higher salary was only to the British officials. Then comes the military cause. The Indians who are in the military can only go up to the post of subedars, and for extra work there was no extra allowances. And British used Indians across sea. Crossing sea for Hindus was a taboo. Now let's see what are the places of revolt, who are the leaders, and British Governor General who suppressed it. Look on to the Delhi. The leader was Bahadur Shah, and the revolt was suppressed by John Nicholson. Second, Kanpur, Begum Hazrat Mahal. The revolt was suppressed by Henry Lawrence. Then Jhansi, Rani Lakshmi Bai, and Tantyar Top. The revolt was suppressed by General Hugh Rose. Then come the Kanpur. Leader was Nana Sahib, and revolt was suppressed by Sir Campbell. Then Bareilly, Khan Bahadur. It is also suppressed by Sir Campbell. Then the Bihar, Kunwar Singh. Revolt was suppressed by the William Taylor. See the reasons for the failure of revolt. The administrative reasons include highly unorganized effort, that is not unitedly fighted. Leadership was very weak. no plannings. These are the administrative reasons. Then coming to the military reasons, there exists a British army superiority. British had unlimited supplies, whereas Indian had limited supplies. Hence, this created the imbalances in arms. Then ideological reasons. Not all section of Indians were participated. Who are participated, they are fighting for the individual cause and not for the group cause. These are the reasons for the failure of revolt. Even though you learn this 1857 revolt in the history chapter, I have covered it because after this revolt there came the lot of changes in the British administration. Hence, I feel that knowing this revolt is important. And in this chart, there are direct question in the various examination and also in the UPSC CSE. Example, the governor generals who suppressed the revolts. What are the changes came after the 1857 revolt? One is administrative changes. Here, British Crown started direct rule, that is crown rule, instead of indirect rule, that is East India Company rule. Hence, East India Company rule was ended. And other administrative changes brought was Viceroy post has been created, and first Viceroy was Canning. Secretary of State for India was created. In army, created the martial race and non-martial race. Martial race were those who supported the British during the 1857 revolt. For example, Sikhs, Jats, Punjabis, Muslims, Gurkhas, Pathans. These were the community who supported the British during the 1857 revolts. Non-martial race was who revolted against the British. These are the administrative changes brought after the 1857 revolt. Government of India Act 1858. What are the features of this Government of India Act 1858 is? One is abolished East India Company and made them as administrative body. And Governor General of India to be known as Viceroy. Secretary of State appointed, and he will be assisted by 15 members council, and this council is known to be as Council of India. The first Secretary of State was John Stanley. Indian Council Act 1861. The features include gave legislation power to the Madras and Bombay. Here nominated 3 Indians in Viceroy Council. Especially the Dinkar Rao, Raja of Banaras, and Maharaja of Patiala. This shows the British carrot and stick policy, because these are the people who are near and dear one to the British. And also in this act, portfolio system was introduced, and this portfolio system was introduced by Canning. There is a portfolio system, means it is like departments in ministry. And ordinance making power was given to the Viceroy. And these are the features you have to remember in the 1861 Act. Then coming to the Indian Council Act 1892. Here increase the number of legislative council, and indirect elections were introduced. Allowed Indians for hearing the budget but not to vote, and also allowed Indians to ask a question but not supplementary question. Then coming to the Indian Council Act 1909 or Morley Minto reform. Here Morley is Secretary of State, Minto is Viceroy. In this act, direct elections were introduced. Also gave the separate electorate for Muslims. What is meant by separate electorate? Here Muslims can stand and Muslims to vote. That is, if a Muslim candidate is standing for election, only the Muslim citizen can vote for him, not the other citizens. This is what separate electorate means. No, number of legislative council members increased from up to 60. Increased to up to 60. Here the main important provision was Association of Indians in Viceroy Executive Council for first time. Earlier it was Legislative Council member, but here Viceroy Executive Council the Indians were allowed, and the Satyendra Prasad Sinha was the first Indian to be in Viceroy Executive Council. Satyendra Prasad Sinha, first Indian to be in Viceroy Executive Council. Then coming to the Government of India Act 1919 or Montagu-Chelmsford reform. The separate electorate was continued, and also to Anglo-Indians and Sikhs. Here bicameralism came into existence, that is Council of State and Legislative Assembly. Then diarchy was introduced in provinces. Diarchy implies dual government. Dual government is divided into reserved subjects and transferred subjects. Reserved subjects are seen by the governor and executive council, and transfer subjects are seen by the Indians. The example for reserved subjects are law and order, police, irrigation and land, and various other subjects. And transfer subject examples are agriculture, education and public health. Also established the Public Service Commissions in 1926. And first time CSE exam held in India in 1920 in Allahabad. The Simon Commission was formed in 1927 to look on the working of 1919 Act. Simon Commission gave the recommendation, for example, diarchy to be continued, separate electorate to Muslims continued, and voting rights to be through universal adult franchise. These are the recommendation given by the Simon Commission. Government of India Act 1935, and this is formed on the basis of Simon Commission, brought the All India Federation including provinces and princely states, that is federal list, provincial list and concurrent list, but this never came into existence. And this Government of India Act was detailed and longest law, and this act separated Burma from India, provided the provincial autonomy, that is option for princely state to join the Indian Federation. This act also introduced RBI and federal court, and through this act two new provinces were created, Orissa and Sindh, and from this act around 14% population got voting rights. And these are the features of the Government of India Act 1935. Then coming to the last act, Indian Independence Act 1947. The features include partition, British India into India and Pak, that is independent dominions. This act ended the British rule. This act also divided provinces of Bengal and Punjab. Till the separate constitution, the 1935 Act used to govern is mentioned in this act. These are the features of all the acts. Now let us see what type of questions has been asked from the historical background or historical underpinnings. In Charter Act 1813, in UPSC CSC 2018, the rupees 1 lakh on education annually to be spent was asked in the Civil Service Examination 2018. Then in 1919, the diarchy in provinces, especially the dual government, reserve subject and transfer subject. Here in CSC 2022, they have asked the examples directly, that is from the transferred subjects and reserved subjects. And apart from that, in 2017, the diarchy in province was introduced by is been asked in CSC 2017, and later in 2015 they asked what exactly the diarchy means, or diarchy in especially the central subject and the provincial subjects. Then coming to the 1935 Act, here they have asked in 2018 that the residuary power was lied with the Viceroy, and in 2021 they have asked for reservation for depressed classes, women and labor. This was the provision from the 1935 Act. And apart from this, the 1857 revolt, there has been questions from directly from the Governor Generals who suppressed the revolt. So friends, let's have the recap. First, we have seen the timeline, that is Portuguese, Dutch, British, Danes and France. And here we have seen the first to come and last to go. Then we have seen the British rule in India. Here we have divided the company rule and crown rule. In company rule, that is 1773 to 1858, and crown rule 1858 to 1947. In company rule, we have seen the Regulating Act 1773, Pitt's India Act and Charters Act. In crown rule, we have seen the Government of India Act 1858, Indian Council Act 1861, 1892 and 1909, and later the Government of India Act 1919, Government of India Act 1935 and Indian Independence Act 1947. And here we have seen the detailed provisions of these acts and also covered the 1857 revolt in detail. In next lecture, we will see about the making of the constitution. So friends, for further updates, you can join the Telegram channel in the given in the description box. And I feel this video lecture was helpful and initiative for you. Thank you friends.